Well, welcome to the BACnet. You guys obviously know what that is. We've got a great program. We kind of coined it Back to the Future. And I think BACnet has been a lot of our past, but I think it's going to be a lot more of our future because it's got such touch and feel, and we can make it all come together in the cloud, and we need to get this information there because AI is looking for it. So there is a lot of changes coming down, and we've definitely got the people here to tell you what it's going to be all about. I'm going to, I think you probably know most of the panelists, but I'll have them do a little quick intro of their own, just in case, and they can also give a little plug for who they are and why they're here. You want to start, Jim?
Sure. Is mic on? Yep. Good. My name's Jim Lee. I'm president of Symmetrics. We're a 36-year-old company based in Boston, and we do BACnet technology. We license protocol stacks to manufacturers. We also have an analytics business. I also have been involved in BACnet since the early 90s, founded the BACnet Manufacturers Association, which has been changed to BACnet International, that Andy has been the president of for many years now. So very involved in BACnet testing, BACnet marketing. And I'm here to basically give a little historical background on some of the ground we covered with BACnet, as well as briefly talk about where we're going. So that's me. Tracy?
Oh, your mic's right behind you there, Tracy. Right directly behind you. Yeah, there you go.
I need eyes in the back of my head.
Yeah, that's right.
So what Jim said, but on the lawn work side. My name's Tracy Markey. My day job is Ingenuity Systems, a 32-year-old company. Jim and I have known each other for probably all of that time in our roles. And I am currently the chairman of the board of directors, or chairman of Lawnmark International. We went through a similar history and evolution and migration into an international organization. And we are obviously at very different points in the technology life cycle between BACnet and LawnWorks. So I can talk a little bit about that when we get into it. But back to my day job. So Ingenuity is a value-added reseller of products historically. More recently, we have been developing cloud-based platforms that are targeted at solving the issues that small buildings have in bringing the same capabilities that we're all familiar with large commercial buildings into a small building format, complete with all the cloud capabilities and AI and so forth, but at a price point that will work for that footprint in there. So that will be my angle today a little bit, LawnWorks and small buildings.
Okay, great.
So I'm Andy McMillan. I'm president and managing director of BACnet International. And BACnet International is focused really on the successful adoption and use of BACnet, with the emphasis on successful. Right? The users need to actually get value out of it in order for us to have done our job. So we focus a little bit on promotion and education in terms of awareness, but a bigger part of our resources are spent on making sure there's in place a global testing and certification program that's effective. We built the BACnet Institute to provide a single point portal for online learning and information about BACnet. And we work hard to make sure that the BACnet community stays connected and collaborative, which is what's made it successful over its 30 years. We're spending a lot of time at this particular conference celebrating the 30th anniversary of the first public demonstration of BACnet, which happened at AHR in 1995. So that's a big deal for that group that has brought it to fruition, including Jim Lee being one of those people. And we'll talk about that in a panel next door after this one, actually. But other than that, my background throughout my whole career has been in promoting open systems and integration in automation communities. First in office automation, then industrial, and now building. So I'm a strong proponent for open makes for success in the industry, and if companies approach it right, makes for success for companies. So I'll probably approach this from that perspective.
Great. Thanks, guys. That's a good summary. Jim, do you want to set the scene here? I think you've got some pictures you want to show the folks.
Sure. So short deck here, a lot of them are just flash-ons, but BACnet enabling the future. This is the slide that we used 25 years ago to introduce BACnet internationally on trips that Mike Newman, Steve Bushby, and I made as we went around the world trying to sell BACnet. Next slide, Ken. So BACnet has been very successful primarily because the technology was forward-looking and well-established and well-promoted by AHR, but also because there was a huge international standardization effort with CEN, the European standards, and the ISO standards. And Steve Bushby of the National Institute of Standards and Technology did a tremendous amount of work. And if you look in this upper slide here, we see Mike Newman, Bill Swan, and Steve Bushby on these international events. You can see us promoting the first large-scale tests of BACnet in San Francisco, trips to China. Next slide, Ken. And I thought I'd throw up some other historical artifacts. So this is the original release of BACnet Manufacturers Association, once again now BACnet International. You can see this is our kickoff press release, and I highlighted that it's January 14th, 2000. So we started working on BACnet test and setting the groundwork for that in about 1999, and we've been working on that since. Next slide. So as BACnet became more mature, we worked on promoting it in the US through BACnet Manufacturers Association and through AHR and through NIST. And then we went internationally to Japan, China, Korea, Russia, the Middle East, and sold the ideas internationally. Next slide. So we ended up getting the standard translated into many different languages and basically went worldwide. Next. And if you look at that international standards effort, it was really a concerted effort starting with AHR, the European standard, and then the International Standards Organization. So AHR was approved, BACnet was approved as an AHR standard in 1995, and those other two standards followed fairly shortly after that. Next slide. So one of the things that happened along the way to BACnet is my friend and competitor Tracy was really excelling in the marketplace at pushing lawn, and we needed to have a response to show that BACnet would work interoperably. So once again, in 1999, we began working on BACnet testing, and we released the BACnet 135.1 testing specification and the BTL mark. So this is the original trademark document for the BTL mark, which many of you may know, July 1st, 2002. So just to give you some timelines. Thanks, Ken. So I really want to introduce this whole topic to show you where we started out with BACnet and where we're going. So if you look at the first central heating in 1820 and the first air-conditioned building in San Antonio, Texas in 1926, moving forward to the Arab oil embargo, which really got the energy management business fired up with some mini-computer control of buildings, followed by the introduction of RS-485 and multi-drop systems in 1983, which made DDC possible. So up until that point, controls were interchangeable and largely pneumatic or mechanical. And at that point, we moved over, and from 1983 to 1987, the business model of proprietary lock-ins in controls became very prevalent. And there was a reaction to that in 1987. AHR formed the BACnet Committee. Mike Newman and Steve Bushby started the BACnet Committee to develop BACnet. It took until 1995 until the standard was published. We had already been working on interoperability and promotion, and 30 years ago at this show, we did the first big interoperable industry test with many vendors showing their BACnet technology, and we're celebrating that this time. So an interesting thing happened between 1999 and early 2000s, and that was the internet. So if you look at BACnet, it was really designed prior to the internet. But the fundamental value of BACnet is actually the objects and services, the data definitions, the default behaviors. And really what we've decided over time is that BACnet is going to exist on whatever the IT technology du jour is. So it has a long-term future because that 30 years of hashing out of how we're going to represent information, that's the real value of BACnet, and that's what's enshrined in the standard. By 2002, as I mentioned, we introduced BTL testing. By 2004, the BACnet committee under AHR designed a cybersecurity standard to secure BACnet top to bottom. Unfortunately, it was done inside of the industry and inside the community and did not take into account the explosive growth of the internet. So it turns out that collectively as an industry, we decided not to implement that cybersecurity standard. But in 2009, as Cisco tried to enter this industry, they partnered with us to design a secure version of BACnet that would run on existing IT networks with cybersecurity. And an effort was launched in AHR in 2009 called the BACnet IT Working Group. And after 10 years, the name was changed to BACnet Secure Connect, and that technology was published in 2019. However, there were a number of key pieces that were left on the cutting room floor in order to get that standard out. So we convened a group in 2020 during the pandemic of the best and brightest security architects from most of the manufacturers in the industry, and we built a managed BACnet manufacturer's guide, which has just recently been published by AHR. That's a free document that you can download. But in addition to the BACnet SC standardization, we also have this manufacturer's guidance to try to help people produce products that are compatible. So BACnet, as you can see, has had a lot of evolution over time. And if we look at this part where BACnet started, you can see mechanical and pneumatic. And people originally said, hey, well, why don't we just use traditional IT technologies to secure this at the outset? So virtual private networks, VLANs, et cetera. And that's pretty good, and it gets you some of the way there. But for deeply sensitive applications, pharmaceutical and life sciences, military, government, the market is demanding zero trust security. And in order to meet the need, we've been on a trajectory to put that into products. So that's what BACnet Addendum CC. BACnet Addendum CC allows electronic management of cybersecurity certificates and updates and other things. And BACnet Authorization Addendum CP allows different entities in a control system to have privileges to read and write, just like Active Directory would be in Microsoft. So those are all things that are coming. They've actually been standardized by AHR, but they're being built into people's products now. And as those things come in, it's going to make doing cybersecurity easier and easier. We're not to the easy button yet, but in the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see this stuff broadly appear in products. So one last comment about cybersecurity. A lot of people view industry here as a products or a projects business. And that's not what cybersecurity is about. It's a process and a people business. So if your customers buy BACnet SC, that actually is only about 20% of a solution for cybersecurity. So if we look at the NIST cybersecurity framework and how that all of the other people and process pieces that need to be put in, there's a huge gap there. And we're beginning to address that gap with the BACnet Cloud Collective, which is a group that we have just kicked off, which is basically going to do a cybersecurity user guidance. And that's happening under the auspices of the Consortium for Smarter Buildings, which is part of the Linux Foundation. And we'll certainly be having a lot of input from AHR. So if anyone would like to participate in that, we'd be happy to have that. Next slide, Ken. So this is the Managed BACnet guidance document. This is freely available from AHR in their standards area. Next. Page in all the other little bullets here if they fly in. There we go. So if you look at the technology that we've been working on in this managed BACnet guidance. We're looking at device onboarding, certificate management, IT integration, asset management, firewall policies. These are BACnet firewalls, not IT firewalls. Network and security configuration, backup and restore, version and firmware tracking, all the things that we need to have real cybersecurity. Next. So the BACnet Cloud Collective, which we've just launched, is an organization that is going to be working on some of these things. Next. So what it's all about is basically a group to work on these security issues with a key focus on addressing challenges of applying BACnet in cloud-native environments. So how are you going to get the data out of the buildings into the cloud for other applications to work on? Next. So the first thing we're going to do, this is an ocean that we can boil, but the first thing we're going to do is this managed cybersecurity user's guide to try to educate people on how to build these systems. And we're going to focus on organizational processes that I talked about. How do you handle authorization, access control, certificate management? Well, for instance, what happens if I've got a building automation system that's all locked down with cybersecurity and I sell the building? How does the new owner get the keys to all of those things? You know, there are a lot of different issues that we have to solve there. Does the vendor control who has the keys to the cybersecurity system, or does the owner control it? Does the IT department control it? A lot of policy questions that we'll be working out over time. Next slide. So just to round out, we've been working on this for a long time, and one of our anchor tenants is the Department of Defense. So they've funded a program through the Environmental Technology Program called the ESTC program, which is part of the fifth estate of the DoD, to do interoperability testing of multi-vendor cybersecurity systems. And so right now we have 3 to 4 vendors that are participating at the Army Corps of Engineers Civil Engineering Research Lab in Urbana, Illinois, where we're testing the efficacy of BACnet SC and technologies that followed it, as well as interoperability and how one handles certificate exchange in an interoperable way. Next slide. I'll leave this eye chart alone, but it just shows the progression of where we're going with BACnet. Next. And finally, a roadmap going forward of these different organizations. And we would certainly welcome anyone's participation. These are all open forums, so if you want to learn, you want to get involved, we'd love to have you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thanks, Jim. That was great. Okay, we're now all on the same page or pages. Tracy, you want to add to that? Or?
Sure. I don't have any slides at all, but just talking to it from an industry perspective and having been involved with this for 30 plus years, one of the first observations that I need to publicly say is that the LawnWorks community and the BACnet community, despite outward appearances sometimes, have been in violent agreement for decades.
Right.
The same end goal that we had as organizations. Jim and I remember a fateful taxi ride a long time ago where we ended up in the same taxi for the first time talking to one another, and it was a long taxi ride, so we talked a lot. But we realized right away that we all want the same outcome in the industry, and that is open, interoperable systems. When both of these technologies started, there were no web services. The internet barely was a thing. There certainly was no AI involved. And all of that now is layered on top of that. BACnet Group has done a great job at keeping up with some of the challenges that all that new technology has brought to the industry. And that is the future of where things need to go. And you touched on it a little bit, but the work that we're doing with the C4SB, the Coalition for Smarter Buildings, and the Linux Foundation, again, same exact goal that we've had for 30 years, and that is open interoperable systems. The whole work has moved up stack a bit, right? Instead of being at the physical layer, device to device interoperability, now it's all about interoperability higher up the stack. And then all of the things that Jim talked about from a security standpoint that come along with that all have to be addressed on that. And it's been fascinating for me over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years here, where we've been, I guess it started in the pandemic when we started the whole Monday Live conversation. I literally have pulled slides from educational sessions from 25 or 30 years ago and reused them as slides and presentations recently, because the message is still the same, the outcome is still the same. So all of this work that the BACnet community is doing is trying to foster that same end goal. How can we safely pull all of this together, share data, make data AI ready, because that is really the new killer app in this whole thing. And Lawn is folding under C4SB. The Lawnmark International is folding under C4SB. So we are absolutely 100% on board. And the reality of my world that I live in day to day is there are almost every building is multi-protocol in one form or another. It's not always BACnet and Lawn. It can be BACnet and RS-45 or BACnet and Lawn and proprietary, or a bunch of it is implemented through APIs and it's all cloud-based. There's rarely a clean, true, one standard fits all in all of this. So the reality is we all have to be headed towards the same endpoint in the end goal. So all the work that we're doing with C4SB now is all about that same mission that we all started 30 years ago on these protocols. So
Actually, just in the fact that we don't have Rick here, and I think all you...
he's on his way, but
He is?
so he says.
So he says, well, I was just wondering if you all belong to the Cloud Collective, right?
C4SB.
C4SB. Yeah.
Okay, can you want to maybe just give us a little bit of insight as to what he might say in case he doesn't make it? Because this would be his spot, so we can have him redefine it, but you want to take...
I'll start out for a second and Tracy can
Okay.
backfill.
Yeah.
So the Consortium for Smarter Buildings has been around for, about 4 years, Tracy?
Yes, Forrest, yep.
And the thesis of the organization is, how do we liberate data so that we can use it in multiple applications? And I think everyone's aware that for many years we've been looking at a convergence of building automation and IT. And as that convergence come along, the question is who's going to own that? Who's going to dominate? And in certain cycles, it looked as though the IT community was just going to swoop in and own all this stuff. And that was my point of view probably up till about 10 years ago. But when we saw the whites of the eyes of the IT community, they basically did the backstroke. So they want to have veto power and they want to monitor what we're doing, but they don't want to own it or run it. And there's seems to be some understanding that IT doesn't want to be responsible for OT networks. It falls outside of their sphere. So influence, but not ownership. So the question is how as an industry can we go forward? Because we're so heavily integrated with IT and dependent on it. And the answer is why not graft onto the Linux Foundation, which has a strong presence, and in fact, move our agenda forward with BACnet, with BACnet International, with Lawn, with all of these other organizations, metadata standards, Haystack, ASHRAE 223. All these people are trying to get together to move the agenda forward in an open, possible way and get it a little closer to IT. So I'll turn it to Tracy.
And all of those groups are working with C4SB currently, right?
Correct.
I mean, at the end of the day, your building doesn't care about what protocol you're using. Your building owner doesn't care about what protocol you're using, or which name is on the wire. It's about trying to create an open ecosystem. And as Jim mentioned, that is foundational to C4SB and what we're trying to move forward. And even though it's been around for 4 years, I'd say it's still in its infancy in so many ways. We're trying to catch up and keep up with innovation and everything that's going on with AI. But it has gone from just a couple of years ago, it had a couple of working projects, to now 15, maybe 16, I counted today, working groups identified and kind of right out of the chute as things start to migrate into the Linux Foundation. And the goal is, make no mistake, to try to use the philosophies and the processes of the Linux Foundation in terms of creating open source solutions for vertical industries. If you go home and Google Linux Foundation and read a little bit about it, you'll see vertical industry after vertical industry where they got involved and were part of a solution to open things up in that industry. And you think of it as a technology foundation, but one of the most active players in there is the movie and TV industry of all entities. I still find that fascinating. Who would have thought they would be part of the Linux Foundation? Well, if you think about how movies are created with all the CGI and digital assets that go into creating movies these days, sharing all of that openly across different development platforms and different CGI platforms, that turns out same problem that we have, right? All of that has to have context, and semantics needs to be involved with the data and where it's going and how it gets used by the platform. So it makes perfect sense from that standpoint. And the goal here of C4SB is to do the same thing in the buildings community.
Great. Okay, thank you. You framed that really well. Andy, are you good to go?
I'll let the audience judge whether I'm good to go or not.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make them work first. I have an audience participation question. Would you just raise your hand if you kind of think you have devices from a couple of vendors, you should be able to get them to work together? In this day and age, do you expect that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the slides are the same as 25 years ago. The audience is not, right? 25 years ago, there wouldn't be a hand raised. You'd be like, well, of course not. That vendor doesn't talk to that vendor. They're not supposed to. It's designed that way. So the world really has changed in some really important ways. And while some of the core messaging is the same, we want systems to be interoperable and secure, what we mean by that is really, really different. Back in the day, one of the pictures we used all the time was 3 monitors from 3 vendors, and you couldn't have all your data show up on one screen. So single pane of glass became kind of a word, a phrase, a catchword for that's interoperable. Nowadays, we wouldn't call that special, much less interoperable. It's like, of course you get that. But we want more than that now. And we want more than that in part because we're spoiled in terms of the framework of 30 years ago, but also in part because we don't have the same problem they had. Right? The problem they had back then was framed around a silo. Right? Building automation was its own thing. And we just wanted things to work within that context so we could make better systems out of it. That's not true anymore. Right? The building system no longer sits in isolation. It now has to coexist with corporate things. IT being sort of the catchword for those, but IT reflects inside of it a lot of different pieces. Right? Asset management things, ESG monitoring things, all kinds of things that are corporate now affect this little world of building automation. So we no longer can say, well, we'll just do our own thing. And I think that's important to recognize that we talk about, or used to talk about at least, if we just had a standard that would allow devices to talk to each other, we'd be home free. And that maybe have been true. But in this world where the building systems are part of a larger system of corporate and then a larger system of the community ecosystem, right? You start talking about grid interactions and things, it's even bigger than corporate. So it's not that same anymore. And I, just out of curiosity, I started thinking about, so my little laptop, I don't have it with me, but if I did, I'd open it up and show you. IEEE says that laptop has embedded in it 250 standards. And that's a pretty simple self-contained system. If we want to talk about a building automation system embedded in a corporate environment, embedded in a community environment, there isn't one standard. There can't be one standard. There's too many layers of things to deal with. There's too many parts of the world to deal with to say there's one standard that's going to solve everything for us. So we talk about BACnet as solving a part of the problem, but to Jim's point, even the best, most secure BACnet is maybe 20% of the cybersecurity problem, maybe less depending on who you talk to. So we have to now think about solving systems problems at a systems level. And the tools we have used in the past help us with that, but they no longer are the answer to that. And I think that's part of the value of this evolution of thinking about the industry. It's bigger than us.
It's safe to say that BACnet is part of the solution, not the solution, right?
Exactly. It's a critical part because it enables a set of data interactions and command and control things that are essential to get to the next level, which is, okay, now that I have that, what do I do with it? And to your point about eventually it needs to get to the cloud and AI, it does. And if you don't have the framework, which BACnet provides, to get that data and provide reverse direction controls, AI doesn't help you. So it's a critical integration enabler, but it's no longer the answer, which at one time I think we thought it might be the total answer. It's not. It's a piece of the answer and a critical piece, and we have to start thinking about it in context. And that's going to make all our jobs more complicated. Sorry. It just is. So a session like this where Rick can give us all the answers, make it much easier for all of you.
Introducing
all the homework to Rick.
The late Rick Justice.
Explain all the answers to us.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. I'm Rick Justice. I'm the Executive Director of the Coalition for Smarter Buildings, which is now part of the Linux Foundation. And I hope that they answered all the questions because...
You should have. They
tried.
Awesome. Now what? So I hear Andy describing that BACnet at one point thought maybe, oh, that's all we need. And what we're finding, especially as being now part of the Linux Foundation, is that owners have a really increasing level of expectations around how they want to run their buildings, but also how they run the entire enterprise. And so having consistency across all the digital systems that make up how you run an enterprise, not just how you run a building, is where the new expectations are coming from. So whether it's cybersecurity or whether it's AI, this level of expectations of how you accomplish a full digital transformation of everything that's important to you, your owners, your customers, your end customers, the users. But their expectations are growing very rapidly. I wish that AI could have helped me find this room about 30 minutes ago. But that's the kind of thing.
Did you try? Did you ask? ChatGPT knows where it is.
Try and just find north. I dare any of you to try and find north. But that's what's happening with user expectations or owner expectations in people's homes, in people's businesses, in people's cars, or their airplanes, or their boats, or whatever they've got an expectation of being able to use a new level of kind of digital tool. And what we've got the opportunity to do is to show how BACnet is really, really useful in that new level of expectations. And that's why we're excited to have, or one of the reasons we're excited to have the BACnet Cloud Collective now be part of C4SB, the Linux Foundation.
Great.
Did I catch up okay?
Yep. Actually, so you missed the intro. Do you want to do your quick intro of C4SB?
Sure. Without slides, which is even better. Yeah. So C4SB being part of the Linux Foundation now, that's new. As of a year ago, we joined the Linux Foundation. Before that, about 3 years of being a nonprofit that was looking to try and solve technical issues that were prohibiting the more rapid adoption of smart building technology. That was a mouthful, but we took on a few different technical issues relative to what was holding back the industry. And then a year or so ago, 2 years ago, I believe now, the Linux Foundation sort of approached us and said, hey, we'd really like to be able to make a statement relative to buildings and cities and campuses and how the Linux Foundation can have an impact on the digital transformation of those enterprises. And they sort of asked us whether we would like to be able to roll into the Linux way of doing things. And for those who aren't familiar with the Linux Foundation, yes, it is the organization that is responsible for the operating system, but there's also about 1,000 other working groups and efforts that are all about open standards, open source, and open community participation in driving technology forward. So So Linux, yes. Operating system, yes. Linux also AI, banking, distribution, finance, and now the world of buildings. So we've got, a year ago we had 5 working groups. As of I think last night we're up to 7. Did you say that? Yep. Last night I found out we've got 17, and we're really looking to have more participation. It was pointed out earlier today that we are a little bit too much of a secret, but I think that some of this kind of collaboration with organizations that have been around for a long time and have great membership and great participation will help grow the community of people who want to be able to participate in this Linux way of driving technology forward faster.
Great. Okay, I think this would be a great opportunity. Are there any questions from the audience, if you'd want to direct them at one of these gentlemen? And if you could shout it out, that would be great. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question? Raise your hands. Yes.
You know how I started already, but so I'm looking at this roadmap from BACnet, and first I'll make the statement that you actually were able to bring the business together behind one standard, which is a wonderful standard, but it took about 8 years to get to BACnet SE, for example, right? And so, and where we are today is behind where the market needs to be. So my question, and I feel like maybe you already answered it, is how do you accelerate the delivery of those solutions? And maybe the C4IC is part of that, but I feel like there really needs to be a focus on how much quicker we deliver the standards to keep up with the industry, right? And every time we look at security and compliance, it's going a lot faster than 8 years. It's on a yearly basis. So I don't know if one of the committees about first, adoption, and then second, much quicker deliverable, and it might be the result of adopting existing standard as opposed to reinventing a lot of it, right? I still feel like I hear a lot of committees and reinventing or redoing or maybe something that already exists. So I guess the general question is, any focus on way faster deliverable of those standards?
Okay, I think what she's saying is keep doing what you're doing, but do it faster. Who wants to answer?
Or does the world need another standard? You can have a standard to standardize the standards.
I don't think it's keep doing what you're doing, because if you keep doing what you're doing, it's never different.
Okay.
I'll take an alternate view on that, which is that we've been working on this technology for a long time. And one of the differences is this industry moves extremely slowly because the products in the industry move very slowly. And the adoption moves very slowly as well. So we actually have a bootstrapping problem. So if you look out at the manufacturers who have all invested quite a bit of money in developing BACnet SC, it is now 2026. Standard was released in 2019. We're just beginning to see the beginning of demand now. So the demand is slow, and as such, people are waiting for signals to see those jobs coming in. And we have basically the first 7 major BACnet SC jobs with thousands of nodes coming online right now. And when that demand comes, then the companies involved will react to the supply and things will move faster. But it's really the owner's lack of adoption of cybersecurity technology. And this will be led by the large owners like the military, higher education, healthcare, pharma, life sciences, manufacturing that need that cybersecurity. And so as that comes on, it will evolve. I do agree that we move very slowly, and we are doing the best we can to adopt existing technologies. So right now, the BACnet committee is working on a technology that in IT is called ACME, for automatically populating, addressing and nodes and configuration of new devices. Unfortunately, the OT problem that we have is slightly different, so there's been an adaptation of ACME proposed, which is called BACME. But it uses as much of the IT standards as possible, and that's our mode of operation. So we are trying to accelerate that way.
I would think so. Oh, sorry.
I was just got a quick thing to Tim's point about the manufacturers are moving forward. 15% of all listed BACnet products are now BACnet SC certified.
15.
The products are there. It is a matter of the demand pulling those products into real projects, which is happening now. But that timeline is a demand-driven timeline as much as it is a supply timeline. The standard itself could go faster, and the standard committee certainly always looks at how to do that. But it is a challenging thing to get a consensus standard, which is what we need to have at the end of the day, really fast.
We have opposing forces at work here. We've got we're in the building industry, which historically has a very long life cycle, right? It's not like getting a new cell phone every 2 years or 3 years. A building system goes in and it's expected to work for a couple of decades, right? And so there's not a lot of pressure or motivation to be buying the latest, greatest version of product with BACnet SC in it. At the same time, we've got a situation, coming back to Sabine's question about academia moves at one speed, and historically, academia was always challenged to keep up with the speed of business, right? Now, we've got a situation where business can't keep up with the speed of AI and AI innovation and development. So it's exacerbated an already bad situation in terms of a long life cycle. And you know, I hosted the AI session in here earlier, and the things we're talking about in our third year of doing that are completely evolved from the first year we had that already, you know? And so that problem about the long life cycle and long adoption isn't going to go away because buildings don't have budgets and they don't replace their hardware every 3 years. So it is going to take time to adopt.
Yeah, and just one footnote on that. If you look at technology providers, the standards bodies, everything in the marketplace, there's actually a pain point where there's a chokehold on this entire process, and that happens to be procurement, which in this industry is stone-aged, using basically bid and spec RFP processes to solve system and process engineering problems that don't work. And as long as owners and the ecosystem of architects and engineers continues to rely on that system, we can't get the innovation into this industry because it's very, very difficult to open bid. If you look at what we've done with BACnet SC, it's to get almost every manufacturer in the industry out there with products so that it can be open bid. Is that really the right answer? Or is the right answer to find solutions to these products and projects? So think about that when you look at technology adoption. A lot of the problems are procurement.
That just to build on that again, because that's it, and I've heard you talk about that before. If you think about that process, the reward usually goes to who? The lowest bidder. How many of you going to fly home on a plane manufactured by the lowest bidder? Anyone excited to do that? So inherently, our procurement system is designed to acquire the lowest bidder in a competitive situation when you've got a new innovative technology or company or new products going against well-established, higher volume, maybe older technology. Guess who's going to come in at the lower price? And so the natural tendency, the natural momentum of the industry is to not adopt, not pay for, not bring into service some of these newer technologies that we're talking about.
Are there any other questions whoops. Okay, I recognize Scott Cochran, but I'll let you go first because once he starts, you can't stop him.
Just I think follow up to the previous question. So how much in the progression of the standard, how much is having the two standards vary? How much
Well, I can talk a little bit on the lawn side. So lawn has been in decline for a while. Since BACnet really got out there, it's an ASHRAE back standard. It was easy for manufacturers and specifiers to point to. It's an ASHRAE standard, right? And so there's a long history, and Jim and I have had drinks over this, and it takes more than one drink. But I think that ship has sailed, right? Now what we're dealing with, and I had a session first thing this morning talking about evolving lawn works, right? There's been recent announcements of the end of life of the original neuron chip. That's like another little bit of a dagger in some of the tools. But at the same time, my argument this morning was this is not the death of LawnWorks. LawnWorks is in hundreds of thousands of buildings around the world. And nobody is in a place to rip and replace all of that and put new technology, new products, new whatever in. So it's going to be a coexistence for as long as LawnWorks can be supported and does the jobs. With those end-of-life announcements, the systems didn't stop working all of a sudden, right? So there's no motivation for anyone to build. It'll be 20 when the 20 years is up, and then they'll be looking to build whatever is next. So. There are already several manufacturers that have great gateway solutions with both protocol stacks in place that will easily address a lawn node from the BACnet side as if it were on the BACnet network and vice versa. So all of that already exists. And what we tell, we did a lot of work, my day job, Ingenuity, with LawnWorks early on. And what we're helping customers as they're trying to figure out how to evolve their building is to look exactly at that. Look, there's no new specs coming out with LawnWorks specified in it, at least not right now. So they have to find ways to bridge and gateway between, and that's not just true for lawn, by the way. That's RS 485 and proprietary. There's more than just HVAC in a building. When you open up to the world of IoT and just kind of think of it from an IoT standpoint, there are dozens of different kinds of systems in a building that C4SB Linux Foundation is very interested in figuring out how to get all of that stuff communicating, sharing data. When you have AI sitting on top of all of this as kind of the killer app, all of that data can be collated in ways that we never thought possible, right? So that is the direction. They're going to coexist. I mean, maybe you want to add to that, but
I can't add anything. I thought it was well said, Tracy.
Yeah, well said.
And without a drink, I'm impressed.
Scott Cochran, it is your turn.
Yeah, my question for each of you is, how will AI change this conversation, say, 2-3 years from now? Like, each one of you guys are talking about each part of your segment, but you individually, how is AI going to change your viewpoint? And again, this is your opinion, of course, but give us an idea of what you're thinking. What's going to change with AI and with these conversations?
I can certainly jump in. I don't want to monopolize, but I'll tell you just from my daytime perspective on the software side of our company, if you looked at our product roadmap 3 years ago, you could not find the 2 letters AI side by side anywhere in that product roadmap. And now it's in virtually every aspect of that product roadmap. So it's going to change everything that we do. It's one of the key drivers for why we're so urgently trying to move C4SB forward to make that happen. It is to our industry and others, but our industry as Excel was to the adoption of PCs in Windows back in the day. It is the killer app that's going to drive, I think, a lot of this forward.
Anybody else want to respond? Oh.
Yeah, as I think I said earlier, owners' expectations or users' expectations, everybody's expectations of how AI is going to impact everything is changing just really, really dramatically. And we love it because it's bringing awareness to, well, why can't I see this, or why can't I get an answer that includes data from this system? Why is that a problem? How come I didn't know that this system was already on its, was using more energy than what it should have? It was a signature of this is about to fail. Why didn't I know that? Why wasn't there some AI agent that was looking at that? I've got a good friend who's been not able to work for 4 days because the heat isn't working. We're in Kansas City. It's 7 degrees there yesterday. And the expectation, and these are not people that are OGs, I think they call us. The expectations of the next generation is, why can't I get that system to be participating in my AI queries, and oh my gosh, they understand the difference between LLMs and agentic AI and the evolution of all that. So it's the expectation of kind of the next generation of why can't I have this piece of information be part of my answer? That is what we have to expect, and that goes across the entire enterprise, or across the entire operation of what they're interested in. And so, like I said earlier, we've got this opportunity to show how the standards work that we've been doing since we were young. You guys are younger than me. So we've been working really hard at this. We all believe in multi-vendor and open interoperable systems, but we've got the opportunity now over the next few years to show how this work and this expertise can be made visible to be part of AI. So embrace the expectation and show how our expertise can participate.
It's going to happen with or without us.
It's going to happen, and it's going to have to be with us.
That's right.
And the reason for that is fundamental, right? You can't get there if you don't get data. If you can't affect things, then you're not going to get there. AI by itself doesn't do anything, right? It's a tool that helps businesses operate if it's used right. I do think it's a little hard to look forward more than 60 days and talk about AI is going to be. If you look at how things have progressed even in the last couple of years, it's so significantly different in terms of what people expect from AI and what people are investing in AI. And when you think about, we're working with the first generation of AI technology, right? We're working with transformers, which is sort of the technical term for how it works. There's another one coming, and it's going to be quite different in terms of what it can do. So I think it's interesting to think about that question, but the more immediate question is, how do we continue down the path we've been on, which is integrating all of the pieces that are within our domain and providing access to those in a secure way? And that's not going to change. That still has to happen, whatever happens with AI, because it can't do anything until it can do that much with the building system. So that's my 2 cents, worth slightly less than that, but.
Yeah, I'd throw it back at you, Scott, and ask you what the definition of AI is. Because, go ahead.
I'll give you an example. I have some people around me that do play with AI, and they've told me that protocols won't matter because AI will be able to essentially reverse protocol anything we have in the field today.
Yeah.
So we're talking about protocols, we're talking about the future of them. And I'm being told by AI people that we may not need them. So where are we headed? Where are we going? So that's sort of the stemming question is if the capability is there, what do we need, where do we need to go as a community?
Yeah,
And I'm not trying to, I'm just asking as a community, what will be our role?
yeah.
What's this now?
So,
Jim, this question is directly to you.
yeah, well, let me just come back at that for a minute, because we've had this debate many, many times on Monday Live, and the fact is that AI is very powerful, and in terms of metadata standards, things like Haystack, ASHRAE 223P, the question is if AI can figure this stuff out and learn it, what do I need these things for? I need the protocol still because I need to get bits on the wire and I need to get data out. The data definitions are the power of BACnet. And if you look going forward, will AI be able to use a divining rod to tell what those things are? And where we've come out in this discussion is that it will. The only difference is that when humans are involved in the problem, we still need those taxonomies. And it's really how humans will interact with AI, which is the raison d'etre for having these ways of organizing metadata. Does that make sense, Scott?
It does, thank you, Jim.
Sure.
I will throw in, just about a month ago, the Linux Foundation announced AAIF, which is Agentic AI Foundation, and it's a new effort inside of Linux to ensure that the future of AI is open. Only a year or so ago, we all learned about a thing called OpenAI that all of a sudden wasn't. Did anybody realize that? But it was announced as OpenAI, and then all of a sudden ChatGPT decided to go proprietary. Well, as of a couple of months ago, the Linux Foundation, with the support of all the largest companies you can think of, is a new effort to have governance over how AI, specifically agentic AI, develops and how that continues to be an open community-based effort. So, and again, what we're at C4SB, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, hey, look at us over here in buildings. We're actually getting our act together. I use the word act. Getting our act together to get our systems ready for that new expectation of AI. So, but the Linux Foundation is taking the idea of AI very seriously, and we're wanting to make sure that the buildings are the model citizen for participating in the future of AI.
One final comment. I think that if we look at what AI will be very good at, and we look at how our industry is organized today, it's still incredibly siloed in terms of HVAC, fire, security, environmental health and safety. And figuring out how to get this data so that AI can apply it is very important. A lot of people have gone along with this attitude that I need a data lake. I'll just collect all the data and something will magically happen. But in fact, the real correct way to look at this problem is top down, is to have some opinions on how that information is going to be used so that we can intelligently figure out how to collect it. And I think that's really important in the entire AI argument, is figuring out what the hell we want to do with it at the 70,000 foot level so we can figure out how to organize what we're going to do below, rather than the other way around.
Great. Okay, we're getting close to the end of the hour here. I got a lot of great information. I hope you did as well. How about we give these folks a round of applause? And thank you very much.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, thank you for having us.